Hi, welcome to today's update. It's actually been a few weeks. Hope you've all been well over the Easter break. Today I wanted to talk about sort of optimism and trying to put in perspective some of this bad news that's always in the media and really sort of have a look at, well, is the world getting better or worse? Because if we read the paper every day and read the news, it's almost like the world's getting worse. The environment's ruined. There's always terrible events going on around the world, and shootings and deaths and cyclones and storms and all those sort of things that can really dampen our mindset. But when you actually look at some of the data, these are the best times to have ever lived. Like, we're living in a world where, for most people, generally speaking of course, healthcare is better than it's ever been. Life expectancies are much higher than they've ever been. Other than COVID, we can travel around. People are generally wealthier than they were 40, 50 years ago on a general sense. All these sorts of things. So I've got this article here, 50 ways the world is getting better. It's really interesting, and there's quite a few books around it. One of them I'll touch on in a second. There's a few charts to sort of back this up. So behind me is it's from the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, and they publish the life expectancy tables. Now, a bit hard to see there, I know, but this is just going back 30 years. And the bottom chart there is men, and the higher one is females. And it shows that life expectancy has gone. In 1991, the life expectancy of an Australian male was 74 years, and for a female, 80 years. That, in 30 years, has increased to about 80 for a man now, just over 80, and 84 for a female. So just in 30 years, the life expectancy tables have increased considerably, and that those charts don't mean that we all drop dead at that age. That's a table, an average of the table. So, there's some really good stats there. And then people get worried about world growth and what's going on. Obviously, the environment's a huge topic at the moment. But one of the biggest indicators of where the world's at, again, hard to see, a little bit behind me, I'll show it. That's a chart of world growth. It's obviously a nice, even, consistent chart of growth, and that's from 1960 to today. So as you can see, the world's been growing at a really steady rate. This is a combined world growth rate. So if we look at some of those stats, things like economic growth is on the increase. Something like just 200 years ago, it's a fair while ago, 85% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. Today, that's only 9%. Now, still a lot of people, but 9% live in extreme poverty of the world's population. Things about infant mortality, healthcare obviously has gone through the roof. Our lives with technology and things like that. So it's just a matter of putting some of these things, I think, sometimes in perspective, having a look at, well, is the world getting better or worse? And that flows through to our sense of security and clarity around our finances and retirement as well. Because obviously the last year or so, last couple of years have been quite volatile. We've had COVID, we've had the market adjusting to interest rates, and a lot of concerns and all these daily concerns. So again, I always like to try to stay optimistic, put things in perspective, and know that at the end of the day, things are actually getting better. The world is probably a better place generally than it ever has been. So on that note, there's some good things here. I'll share this book. It's a really good book. It's called Abundance. I'll share that in the links as well if anyone's interested. It's an interesting book. Again, puts things in perspective around how the world is sort of getting better. On that topic around the world getting better, technology is a huge thing, and there's all the time in the papers talk about scams and the amount of people lose to scams. So I hope none of you listening have been scammed. We get text messages and phone calls all the time, and a common question, as it should be, is the protection of investments, because the way we invest is as secure as it possibly can be. There's a really good guide here. It talks about the investor protection and processes that go on behind the scenes in the Australian system, not just what we do obviously, but the systems we use to make sure that your money is as safe as it possibly can be. The regulations, the systems that we're using, regulated investments, how the custody system works, how those systems work at all the institutions that we use. So, simple things from two-factor passwords through to... And so if you're interested and want to look at the detail behind the scenes, we can send you one of these copies as well. But of course, don't action any strange messages or text messages or anything like that. Be really careful of emails and downloading things. It is very common these days, and most of us get at least once a week some sort of strange message. So be very careful, and always call us if you're unsure. Thanks for listening in. Hope that was helpful, and please call or if you have any questions.